Right, Sarah, so let's just go to where I am right now because I'm standing inside the home. They have just let journalists in here to assess the damage of the home itself, and maybe I can go through here just to show the damage of what's really taking place here inside the home, Fendi. And I just want to get so I can actually see what's going on here. 1 second, Sarah. We're looking at a completely destroyed internal structure here, obviously, of the home itself. Which, as we saw from the outside, affected also surrounding homes in the vicinity, and ultimately completely destroying this home at least, and also damaging nearby facilities and buildings. And we have to be very careful here not to cause any more damage and not to allow this small area that's actually still maintaining some sort of structure to collapse. So obviously still dangerous to be inside, but we can see here just the extent of the damage, and you can see here the wheelchair. We understand that there was an elderly person who lived here, and the foreign worker. And now again we have a red alert siren, and people are going to slowly exit here. Slowly exit. Everybody's slowly exiting because there's another rocket alert siren. People are running to shelter, trying to hide underneath the areas where you can find shelter. Look, that's how you behave in these scenarios. You lay on the ground, you cover your head, and you hope for the best. And you hope that this situation doesn't continue again. Now you can see a child being taken, rushed to the home from the car, rushed inside towards a shelter. Here you can see the home front command doing that exactly. And again, Iron Dome interceptor missiles overhead, if you can see it above the house here. So those rockets were certainly potentially heading again in this vicinity. So this is far from over, Sarah, to put it lightly. And we were warned before we entered the home that if a siren sounds, you have to get out immediately, but also carefully, so as not to hit anything that could lead this structure to falling apart even more. And that's the latest we can tell you from inside the home itself. And then, of course, as we've seen time and time again, having to rush to shelter because the rocket alert sirens continue to sound here in Ashkelon and elsewhere throughout the region. Yeah. So that's the latest we can say here on the ground, Sarah. You were asking me about something else. I'd be happy to answer that question.
Yeah, sure. No, well, that damage to the home there is absolutely unbelievable, Daniel. Tell me, what about the people who live there? All right. Don't know if Daniel Semach can hear us there. Daniel, have you got me? No, it looks like we've lost audio with Daniel, but Daniel is there on the ground in Ashkelon. All right, Daniel, tell me.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here, Sarah.
What do we know about the people?
Sorry.
What do we know about the people, Daniel, who own that home?
I know that there was an injury sustained by one of the owners of the home, and I can tell you that the foreign worker who was helping the family, who lives in this home, she was killed. She was killed as a result of the blast. She was killed as a result of this projectile launch that struck the home itself. And, you know, I spoke to neighbors who are still in shock. It's very hard for them to even express and characterize what took place. But they told me that they themselves personally were saved because they did get into a shelter. I can only assume that when this rocket hit, that there either was not enough time to get into the shelter for everyone, or maybe that this foreign worker was indeed trying to help the person that she that her livelihood depends on her helping, and ultimately it did lead to her death. So it's a very sad situation.
It really is.
To say the least, Sarah. And ultimately we're seeing more rockets continuing to be launched, as we saw just the last few minutes.
And Daniel, we are seeing now this live shot again right over Gaza City. There are more plumes of smoke rising up above these buildings. Will this IDF operation there in the Strip just continue as long as these rockets are sent over?
Right. So, Sarah, I couldn't hear everything you were saying there. It seems like the phone is getting a little bit disconnected. But regarding the IDF activity as of late, we do know that the IDF from the get-go until now is taking a very aggressive approach. They're not just striking Hamas infrastructure. They're striking militants themselves. They're striking top-ranking commanders, not only of Hamas, but also of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They're striking areas of high value, of high priority. And Israel obviously has a very large and well-detailed bank of targets targets, and it seems as though many of those targets, out of the plus 130 that we've seen so far, are high-profile sort of targets, and the Israeli military has made it quite clear that they are going to take an aggressive approach in order to reestablish deterrence, as IDF spokesperson's unit likes to call it. And so this situation is also going to involve very, very heavy strikes inside the Gaza Strip, mainly with the Israeli Air Force, but we also saw a specific operation which utilized also forces from Israeli Special Forces of the infantry units, Maglan and Egoz. Those are two top elite units in the Israeli military who were useful in taking out some of these PIJ commanders from what it appears, Sarah.
All right, Daniel Semak there on the ground for us in Ashkelon in southern Israel. Daniel, please stay safe. And let's now go back to our senior correspondent, Owen Alterman. Owen,